The battle of wizards and warriors continues with iron swords. The evil wizard Malkil will take the shape of the earth, wind, water, and fire. Farewell! The fate of the world is in your hands!
You're listening to the Piercing Wizard podcast, and I'm your host, Ryan Ouellette. I'm a professional body piercer with 20 years experience. I travel around the world teaching technique and safety classes, and I'm a member of the Association of Professional Piercers. Listen in as I talk to my friends and colleagues about our industry so we can all stay sharp. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Piercing Wizard podcast. My name is Ryan. I do body piercings in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this week I have my lovely co-host, Lola. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lola Slider. I am Ryan's co-host for this week's episode of the Piercing Wizard podcast. And since we're moving into spring, we decided to put our heads together and come up with a theme for the episode that was a little bit more upbeat and positive, just to get you all into the spring spirit a little bit. Do you want to tell everyone what we're going to be doing today?
Yeah, so instead of being the Piercing Pessimist podcast, your idea was to basically do 10 things I love about body piercing. And I thought that it was a really good idea because sometimes we do like deep dive episodes on one subject, sometimes we do Q&A, sometimes we talk about current events or whatever. And just because of our personalities, we tend to kind of like spiral into talking about the things that bother us or maybe are a little bit less than ideal. So we wanted to kind of switch it up and do a rare episode where we just talk about positivity. So that was your idea, and I think that that's a good idea.
And inspired by the film classic 10 Things I Hate About You, which
Was
we should
that was that was that the Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger one?
yeah.
Okay. It's hard to keep track sometimes because we've watched quite a few romantic comedies together.
Well, I think that we should watch it again to refresh your memory.
Okay, but we're already recording the podcast right now.
Okay, well, people can just sit quietly while we watch 10 Things I Hate About You. I don't see what the problem is.
All right, welcome to the Piercing Wizard podcast does a watch along for 10 Things I Hate About You.
Would be the best episode we've ever done.
Potentially. Well, okay, so behind the curtains, the episode that never saw the light of day was we actually tried to do a watch along episode for Strangeland, the D. Snyder movie about the serial killer that was really into body piercing. And surprisingly, it wasn't as good as I remember it being. And that was also wasn't that the chainsaw incident or the weed whacker incident outside your window?
Possibly.
We sat down. I bought this DVD online to watch it. It wasn't something that we could just get on streaming. I brought over my podcast stuff. I set it all up, and we went to sit down, and we got like 30 seconds into the recording, and then like a landscaper right outside the window decided that that would be the day to use power tools to trim the hedge.
So just be mindful of the fact that the podcasts that you're hearing are the ones that made it to air.
Yeah,
They're, they're
these are the these are the picks of the
yeah.
good ones, the good takes. So realize that if you don't like our show, there are worse ones that we didn't subject you to.
So what we've done is we've each come up with 5 things that we love about body piercings, and we don't know what the other person's 5 are. So we each do have a couple of alternates in case we've picked the same stuff. I don't know about you, but my ones are kind of like partly from the perspective of being a piercer and partly from the perspective of being pierced. So they're just kind of like things in general. But do you
I
want
couldn't
to?
think of one single thing that I like about getting pierced. I like having piercings. I don't like getting poked with needles. I'm a big baby at this point.
You're so brave when I pierce you.
Thank you. I wrote a few down as like things I like about being a piercer, and then I realized that I should probably also write down some stuff that's more like client based, so it's not all just like, Ryan's personal favorites. But why don't you start with yours, and then I'll get into one of mine.
Okay, well, the first thing that I thought of was travel. I would have never thought getting into piercing, just like getting into piercing as an enthusiast when I was a teenager, that piercing would be a job that would take me around the world, like instructing, attending conferences, now splitting my time between Glasgow and Nashua, I just never imagined that my job could be that big or have that much scope that it could actually take me around the world. I don't think a lot of people think about piercing that way, but that's definitely something that's a bigger part of it than I would have ever thought. And if I was in another job, I don't know if I would have, in fact, I almost certainly wouldn't have been able to travel as much as I have, which is a drop in the bucket compared to how much you've traveled.
Well, if I go back to teenage Ryan and I think of all the different forks in the road that were ahead of me, my life could have been so massively different. Like when I was a teenager, my dad encouraged me to go to a trade school instead of a traditional high school. So I studied to become an electrician. And I was nearly there, got up to senior year and had some disagreements with, that following that as as my profession, and had some disagreements with my teacher. And one of the things they said was like, well, if you don't want to do this, why don't you just go off and be a body piercer or something? And I was like, oh, okay. So I think of like, what could my life have been as an electrician? And maybe I could have been a success, maybe I could have been happy, but I definitely don't think that I would have had a fraction of the opportunities for the travel that I've gotten as a body piercer. And it's not so much the demand of like, we want you to come to this country and pierce us, but like the opportunities that I got as an instructor and attending conferences and being collaborative with other colleagues around the world. It's made a huge impact on my life. It's literally where I met my partner. So like, yeah, piercing has given a lot to me. And travel has been one of those things where I know that I wouldn't have been able to do all this stuff and see all these things and places without being a piercer.
So if you're listening and you're thinking like, I would love to get involved with more of the travel side of things. Keep in mind that there are lots of different avenues that you can pursue for this. Obviously, there's getting a work visa, but there's also applying and putting yourself forward to be a speaker at international events and conferences. There is nothing remotely special about me or about Ryan that has allowed us to do this other than just trying and putting yourself out there for those things. So just keep in mind this is absolutely something you can do. And there's also more scholarships now than there have ever been before to various conferences that you can apply for to get yourself involved and open you up to more international travel in a more affordable way. So yeah, travel, something that I love about body piercing. Um, I don't want to say these are in an order, so I'm going to say that's like, number one, just so that we can keep track. What's your pick?
So the first thing that popped into my head that I love about piercing, and this is more about like through the lens of having a job as a body piercer, I have always loved the smell of medical supplies. There's just something about it, that like sterilized paper and the crinkly packaging and that smell of medical supplies. And I've always loved it. And I have these fond memories of like, so my parents divorced when I was very young. So I lived with my mother and I saw my dad on weekends. And there were the experiences that I would have in both households. And I remember this time where there was a closet in my house at my mom's, and there was this old briefcase suitcase thing from when my dad was in the National Guard and he trained to be a medic. And I opened up this case that hadn't been opened since like the 70s, and it just was this instant smell of like medical supplies, things in sterile packages and whatever. And I don't know if there's any link to that, to what I kind of did later in life, but through my whole life, I've always felt the scent of medical supplies to be very comforting, and it's one of my favorite smells. So I like that that's a component to my job.
So I don't know if you've seen this. I thought this was like a joke product, and to this day, I am not sure if it's like serious or not. But on the supply company that I get most of my disposable products from and consumable products from, they do sell like Dettol wax melts. And I was like,
Like
who?
scented candles?
Yeah, so basically, instead of a candle, it's a wax melt. So you put it like on a little oil burner and light
Yeah.
a little candle underneath it, and it just melts and makes your house smell of Dettol. And I was
Wow.
like, I don't know if I love it or hate it. I don't know. Like,
There are smells that are nostalgic to me. Like we're not really doing much tattooing anymore in my studio, but for years, for 2 decades essentially, I worked in an environment that had that green soap,
yeah,
Dettol tattoo shop smell, and it is still very comforting to me.
yeah, I prefer the clean smell more than like I know some people are into incense and burning and like having scents in the space other than just that clean smell, but I prefer the clean smell. I think it's
Yeah.
reassuring.
Another like scent related memory that I have when I was in my teens, there wasn't really a body piercing scene in New Hampshire. So there was a store called Headlines. There are still Headline stores in New Hampshire today, but the one in Nashua that I was familiar with when I was a kid had like, a smoke shop area and, all these different areas, and they had like a body piercing section. So when you would go in there to like scope out body jewelry, or that's where I bought some of my needles when I was like a teenager and I was piercing myself before it was like a job or a career choice for me. You would go in there all the time. I would buy needles, I'd buy jewelry, and everything would have this headline smell to it. And it was like that, oh, they sell incense here store. So when you would leave, you would just smell like incense for the rest of the day. And that's another one of those like nostalgic smells where it's not exactly a body piercing smell, but I do connect the two in my brain.
Yeah.
So, what would be your next thing that you love about body piercing?
I like to pierce the elderly.
Okay. So, do you
And when
have
I
like a line for what elderly is, or is it like, I know it when I see it?
I would say like 70s, 80s
Okay.
kind of kind of age is what I mean when I say the elderly. I don't just mean like a senior person, an older person, a retired person. I mean like people in their 70s, their 80s,
Yeah.
their 90s. Like,
The winter of their life.
yeah, I I just love piercing the elderly. Like I've never had a rude experience with the elderly. I think a lot of experiences of rudeness that people have with older people is quite often people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. I don't know what the reason for that is, but I've never had a bad interaction with a senior person in that stage of life. I don't know if it's just that they just don't have time for it because like they're just out there living their lives, but they have a nice energy, I think. There's just something really great, I think, about people that 100% know who they are. And there's also something else, like they have cute mannerisms. Like there was a guy I used to pierce who started getting pierced after his wife passed away, and he was retired, and it was something he'd always wanted to do. And so he started coming to see me after that period, and he'd started going to nudist beaches and like seeing people's body piercings, and that's why he started getting them. And I love old people doing stuff that they've always wanted to do. And he would always do this thing that I've observed several elderly people do, which is they fold their clothing in a very neat
Mm,
pile. And
yeah.
this is definitely an age thing. Like it's definitely because people of a certain age had it often literally beaten into them to take care of their shit. So like it's something that doesn't go away is that like everything is neatly folded and placed in a neat little pile. And there's just something about it that's just, I don't know, like other demographics, they'll take off their clothes and like throw them in a little pile or just stuff them in a corner or pile them on a chair or whatever. But the elderly neatly fold their things every time. Yeah, like I don't know, I find it very comforting and just like a really nice experience. Like I've never had a bad experience piercing someone who was, as you put it, in the winter of their years.
Well, I think people that are a little bit later in life, like you said, they know who they are. They don't really bother with as much nonsense as I think younger people do. And when they get pierced, you can tell that it's not because of like a trend or something. It's because they just really want that piercing. And I think I've had some really good interactions with older people, especially ones that are like that whole I've always wanted to do this, or I had it when I was younger and had to take it out for whatever reason, and I would really like it back. And it's like, yep, absolutely. I'm there for it.
And another thing about them as well is they're not easily alarmed by stuff
Oh
because
yeah.
once you get to a certain point in life, you've been through so much, you've done so much, seen so much that like if your piercing is a little bit swollen or you get a tiny bit of blood or whatever, a little bruise or something like that, they're never freaked out and alarmed by stuff
Hmm.
in the way that some younger demographics can be sometimes because
Yeah.
they know that they're fine and then
Yeah.
they'll just come in and see you if they need something. So I just find them like a really like chilled out demographic to work on. So yeah, people in their 70s, 80s and 90s come on in and get pierced by
Mm,
me
mm.
specifically. It's your turn.
When you perfectly thread on an end piece on your first try, like,
Ooh, that's a good one.
yeah, like so in a world where lots of people went threadless, and I don't disagree. I think it's great. I use so much threadless in my studio, but I also come from the generation before threadless where you really had to be able to like get the thing on there without extra tips and tricks like just your fingers. And I remember a time when I was training another piercer, Aaron Foster. I don't think he'd be embarrassed for me to tell this story. It was at the point where it was like, okay, I've observed, like you've observed me doing a septum. I've observed you doing a septum. You're doing everything safe and what I would consider correct. But like, I think the next step would be you do it on your own while I'm in the shop. So if you need me, I'm there, but I'm not going to be looking over your shoulder because that's kind of how I think you need to build confidence is knowing that you can do it completely on your own.
Yeah.
So the first time he did a septum, this was at a time where we would have people sit up still for septum piercings. Now we have them lie down, but 10 years ago or something, people sat up. And we were doing circular barbells for most of our septum. So threaded ball on someone sitting up when you pierce the septum. Not the easiest thing in the world. Sometimes when they
No.
exhale out of their nostrils, you get that little bit of like steam on your gloves, and it makes it even more challenging. So I wanted to be there and be ready for him, and I was standing just outside the door. So if he needed something, all he had to do was ask. And I was listening in. Okay, breathe. We're gonna do the piercing. Everything sounded fine. I'm gonna put the jewelry in. Everything is fine. I'm gonna put the end piece on now. And then there was just silence, and I heard him being like, "Ugh." And then I heard like that whole like click, 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 click when the ball hit the floor.
Yeah.
And then, professionally, I heard him say, just going to stop and change my gloves, open up a new ball, no problem. He did all those things. And then he went to go do it again. And then, oh, click, 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 click. And it fell on the floor. And it was just like, oh, we've all been there. And we all
Yeah.
kind of have to go through that trial by fire. But flash forward, and I do feel very satisfied now when I can do a septum, a genital piercing, or whatever, and I'm using threaded jewelry, and I can just get that end piece on in one twist without having to fumble and restart and back it up and start again and whatever. So that would definitely be on one of my favorite things as a piercer.
So I feel like that kind of leads into my next one quite nicely, which is I love how impressed people are every time I can unscrew something the first try.
Ooh, yeah, especially when they say something like, "Oh, I've been trying to take this off for
Yep.
weeks and it's impossible. It's stuck."
I love that. I feel so smug. Like,
Yeah.
and it's you do that thing where you're like, oh, it's just practice or whatever, but on the inside, I'm just like, yeah. Like, I
Yeah.
love it, especially when like a couple comes in and it's maybe like, a man and a woman, and the woman's like, oh, we've tried everything and we can't get it off. And then I can just like, and then like the guy's been trying to unscrew it and hasn't been able to get it off, and then I just do it. I like to think that it makes me look like I'm super strong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm like secretly shredded,
It's
which
it's like the piercer version of can you open this pickle jar for me?
yeah, it's just it's the same thing. And like I think the reality, not to like, pull back the wizard's curtain too much, but we know the reality is a lot of the time the jewelry is just oily and you just need to
Mm,
like dry it to get better traction. But
yeah.
it's like do that little thing and then it's like when you don't need tools and when it's on like the first try, you're just like, oh, there it's off. And they're just like, oh my God, you're kidding. I can't
Yeah.
believe that's off. And you're just like, yeah, no big. And it's like, oh, it's one of the few like instances at work where I just feel like I have a special like magic power to be able to do something when you can unscrew somebody's bead.
I also do like those scenarios where somebody calls or emails and they're like, "Oh, this ball is stuck. No matter what I try, it just won't work." And you can email back and be like, "Just put on a pair of rubber gloves." And then then they try it and then they're like, "Oh my God, what a trick!" And it's like, "Yeah, it's just that, fingertip on a oily ball or something that has makeup on it, like your fingertips are going to slip. So just use literally anything else for grip, a piece of
Yeah.
tissue paper or a glove, and like they think that you're just like a genius." Is it my turn?
Yeah.
This is going to be the corny thing, and I think that piercers will get it, and I don't know that non-piercers might fully get it, but I would just call it the smile. You do a piercing, people might really want it, kind of want it a little bit, whatever. You do the marks, you do the piercing or whatever, and then they get up and they look at it in the mirror. And not every time. Sometimes people just look at it and they're like, yeah, that's just what I wanted. Sometimes people just beam and it's like it unlocks something in them and they're just so happy and pleased with it because it's like that's who they wanted to be. And it's like you can do it with any simple piercing, any complex piercing, it can happen. But when you do a piercing and you just catch out of the corner of your eye, somebody has this big smile on their face the second they look at the piercing. Like that's very satisfying as a body piercer.
Yeah, I love that. Like it's not quite the same because this is more like from the piercer's perspective, but the closest thing that I would say is similar for me is like we all have opinions about what looks good on someone and what doesn't. And most of the time like if you think someone isn't well suited to something, you'll keep it to yourself because how other people look is none of your fucking business as long as it works. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see someone with something and think, oh, like it just first it's like a hairstyle or an outfit where you're like it's not quite working. So in those situations where someone gets something that's like perfect for them, I love that. Where it's like
Mm.
someone comes in, you have an idea in your head where you're like, you know what would look amazing on them? X piercing, and then that's the thing they want, and you're just like, yes, like, and it's so satisfying to do.
If I was to give maybe like a bonus thing that I like, it's those sometimes rare scenarios where somebody comes in for plan A and maybe it's viable, maybe it's not, but you see something in their style or in their anatomy or something, you're like, have you ever considered this? And they go for it and you were right and it looks great and they love it. Like that's also very, very satisfying because there have been times where I've shot my shot. Be like,
Yeah.
what would you think about doing this as a double or a triple, or have you thought about maybe this alternative or this jewelry? And sometimes people go for it and then when they see it they're just like, I never thought of that and it's great. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, so that would kind of be like the closest thing I can think, but I love that too. Like when someone looks at themselves and it's like, it's a completely like organic, lovely, warm feeling where you can tell that it looks just like they wanted it in their head.
Hmm.
That's a really, really good feeling. Like I love that as well.
Yeah. What is the next thing that you love about piercing?
So, okay, so this is a selfish one. I love that I don't have to get up early in the mornings.
Yeah.
Love, I'm not a morning person. I have tried to be. Like I have tried to be a morning person. I remember there was a time a couple of years ago where I was like, you know what? I've read all of this stuff, which turns out is bollocks, about how if you just spend a certain number of days in a row getting up early, you'll just be used to being up early and you'll be a morning person. And it's not true. I had the worst week of work. Like I wasn't a person that any of us wanted me to be that week. Like, I remember saying to my apprentice, like, don't fucking ever let me do this again. Don't ever let me do this again. If I'm like, you know what? Maybe no. Like, I am just not a morning person. I like a nice solid afternoon shift piercing people, but before lunchtime, I'm not living up to my full potential as a body piercer. So like I know that there are lots of different occupations where getting up early in the morning isn't required, but I do love having a job that doesn't require me to get up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah, for the majority of my life, I was a creature of the night, a creature of the night. And I would work. So American piercer shifts and UK piercer shifts seems pretty different. Like just like the concept of life and time off and whatever. American piercing shifts, I think if I say like 12 to 8, a lot of people might relate to that. So my piercer shifts were 12 to 8, 6 days a week for the first 10 years or so where I had my business. So my thing would be I'd get out at 8 and then I would go out for dinner or I'd make dinner at home and then I would spend the rest of the night watching TV, playing video games, go to bed at like 1 or 2, wake up the next day at like 10 or 11, get a shower and get back into work for 12. And that was my pattern for like a really, really long time. And I think that it worked for me and my personality and my job and whatever. But then like I think the biggest thing that changed it was really during the pandemic, where it was like, well, you don't have your business schedule in the same way. So my schedule turned into your schedule so that we could have time together with the time difference across an ocean. And so it was like, well, Lola's going to bed at like 7 o'clock. So maybe I can get a couple extra hours, TV, video game time or something. But then I'm dead tired by 10. So now I am a tried and true morning person. Like I'm usually up around 6 or 7 at the latest now. And it's just natural to me. I don't set an alarm clock. I just wake up and I get a lot done in the morning and then I go and work. And then when I get home, I'm just too tired and I go to sleep. So it's been very different for me as I've gotten older, and I'm definitely a morning person now. And I think our yin and yang works pretty well for our schedules.
I just had a small disaster.
What did you do?
I finished my tea and there were these little bits in my tea. Like, you know how if you have a tea with like a biscuit, there might be like little tiny bits of biscuit at the bottom of the tea. So there were these
Uh-huh.
little bits in my tea. I swallowed them and then I was like, what the fuck is that? And then I realized that what it is bits of my rubber where I've like been rubbing on this page and then
Oh
blowing
no.
the rubber shavings and they've blown in my tea and now I've drank them and now there's rubber shavings in my throat and it feels
Oh
disgusting.
no.
It's so horrible.
So if
Do
we
not
keep
use
that in the
rubber.
podcast, I need people to understand that when she says rubber, she means pencil eraser. Sometimes we have to talk about our cultural exchange.
What do you call a rubber?
A pencil eraser.
Right, but it's a rubber. It rubs and it's made of rubber.
So you
Like,
don't, okay, Americans don't call it a pencil eraser. They just call it an eraser. So like, yes, the eraser erases things and the rubber rubs things, but in the US, we call them erasers.
okay. So what are we on? I think that was not getting up was number 7. So I think you're number 8.
Okay. So I don't want to make controversy, but I feel like I have to say it because no one says it out loud. Body piercers have the coolest business cards. It's not tattooers, and it's not any other industry. Body piercers have the coolest, wittiest, most collectible business cards.
You do like a good pun.
No one's going to outpun the British. I have come to terms with that. Maybe the Australians are a close second, but Americans can't hold a torch to the UK for puns. But I've met so many piercers over so many places, conferences around the world, and I've been handed so many business cards and like stickers and things like that. And piercers have so much creativity, and I think that part of it is what you do as a piercing. It's not exactly static, but it's like this physical thing. Like you can't have body piercings without body jewelry. So it's like a physical thing. Whereas like a tattoo, there's a lot more of like an art element to it. So I think when piercers want to express their creativity, and it's not something like here's a drawing or a painting that might inspire a tattoo. When we're trying to think of creativity as a body piercer, your mind can just go in so many different ridiculous, insane, funny, smart directions that body piercers have the best business cards, and I'm not ashamed to say it out loud.
Hmm. Yeah, I do like all of our various flair. Like, the business cards and leaflets and stickers and stationery and all that stuff. Like, I think that that weirdly gives away that it is a very creative community, that given the first opportunity to make a thing, people just have fun with it. Slight teaser or whatever, we've officially started working on our super awesome merch for conference season.
Yeah,
So
don't give it away yet though.
I'm just, I'm excited for all of the fun new things that we're going to be bringing out in the summertime.
Yeah, it's going to be continuing your streak of you having way better merch ideas than I do. Like, I don't want people to think that every merch thing that I do or have sold online or had out at a table is always my idea, because a lot of the stuff that we do together is as a team or collaborative, or you're a really busy person, so you don't always have the time to like take your idea and turn it into a physical thing. Your Mozilla design was really funny. Last year you came up with the Pump Up the Gems design. So this year you're also going to be coming up with the idea for our Patreon shirt at conference, and like a couple other things that are really funny, made me laugh out loud when I heard them, and they're definitely better ideas than I would have come up with.
Yeah, I've been promoted to the Chief Executive Officer of Visual Merchandising.
Yeah.
Mhm. Merchandising,
Merchandising. So what's your next thing that you like about piercing?
stealing supplies.
Okay, can you
I
be more specific?
I st like so I just wanted to clarify. I own my own business and I rob myself blind. Like, it doesn't make any sense because it's still my stuff, but like it's not the same. It's just not the same as buying stuff for my home. When I take it from work, it's just more fun. I steal toilet paper. I'm a prolific stealer of toilet paper. Like, it's such an ongoing thing. And you know what it is? It's because I walk everywhere. And who wants to walk carrying a big fucking multi-pack of toilet paper? Nobody wants to walk around like that. Like, it just makes it look like you've had an accident. Like, it's just like, it's not cool to walk around with a giant multi-pack of toilet paper. So if I get one for the shop, I'll just take a bunch of rolls from it and bring it to my house. And then if I run out at the shop, I'll just take a bunch of rolls from my house and bring it to the shop. So like, I'm just ferrying toilet paper back and forth from my flat to the shop. I stole toilet paper from Unperfect House at BMX Net in Germany because the Queen died, remember?
Yeah.
So basically the Queen died, and as I was leaving for BMX Net, I ran out of toilet paper. So I was like, right, remember for when you're coming back, you don't have any toilet paper. So then they arranged the funeral for the Queen on the day that we were flying back, and every single shop in what seemed like the country was closed. Everything was closed. So you couldn't buy anything anywhere. So I took a roll of toilet paper from the hotel to put in my backpack so that we would have toilet paper when we got home, and it was needed in the end. So I would say stealing supplies has been very convenient in that respect. But it's not just toilet paper. I know you think that I'm done, but I'm not. There's more. It's not just toilet paper. It's gloves. I steal so many gloves for dyeing my hair. Like, and I know that I could just take a box home, but I don't want to. I want to steal bundles of gloves and put them in my bag and take them home and dye my hair. And like, probably steal various other things as well, like Neil Med. I take Neil Med for myself, but I think gloves and toilet paper are like up there, the big ones.
I don't think Ryan has paid for his own toilet paper in 20 years. So I get it. Like, Ryan brings home some rolls from Precision Body Arts when he needs them.
Hmm. So, apart from stealing stuff, what is your 10th thing that you love about piercing?
So my final and official thing that I put on the list for this, I have to I have to articulate it in a really specific way. So there are going to be lots of clients that come in, and They want to get something for a fashion reason, they want to get something for a personal reason, whatever. Some of the people that get intimate piercings specifically, I've had interactions with people where they've come in and they've seemed a little withdrawn or something. It's not my place to push people, but sometimes you have those interactions where you build a rapport with maybe even someone who is a complete stranger 10 minutes earlier, and sometimes they just volunteer information like, "Hey, I'm going through this major life event or whatever." And there have been people who have said, "I'm going through a divorce, I've just left a partner, or a partner has passed away." And sometimes they'll say a statement that revolves around the theme of, they didn't want me to get this. They didn't let me get this. I couldn't get this while I was with them, but now I can. And they get really nervous going into something, especially if it's an intimate thing, nipple piercing or a genital piercing or something like that. And then they go into it being kind of like meek in a way, nervous in a way, and maybe there's even a little bit of guilt in the back of their mind where they feel like they're doing something they shouldn't do or weren't permitted to do or whatever. And then you do the thing and you can pierce them in such a way where you can like inspire or wake up a confidence in them where, if you're doing a thing and they're really nervous about getting the thing, you can talk to them and you can say like, we're doing this when you want to do this. Like, I want you to breathe and I'm going to go on your exhale or something, or you can say a word of power or whatever you want. And like, that's when we do it. And it's like, this is your piercing and I'm just here to help you get it. And then they can get it. And then in getting it, you feel like an energy fill the space. And like, it's tough to say what the energy is, but you feel it and they feel it. And when it's done, it's more than just a piercing, and they can have a connection with you. And I've pierced people where we're not what I would consider like friends out in the real world, close friends in a way. Like, we don't hang out, we don't see each other, we don't whatever, but I know that they're out there in the world and they know that I'm out there in the world, and we know that we had an energy connection and it doesn't go away. So I think that that is my absolute favorite thing as a piercer. I'm not an emotional person, I'm not a spiritual person, but I've felt that energy with certain people. And like, going back to the whole like, I could have been an electrician, like I don't think of a lot of electricians have that kind of,
I
it's a
think
different
that
kind of energy that they're
as an
facilitating.
electrician, they're specifically meant to not feel energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that would be the final thing that I would say is when you can affect significant change on someone, that's more than an adornment. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, you forge a core memory with somebody,
Yeah.
like where, it might be a brief interaction, but it's something that either one of you or both of you will remember forever. Like even if you don't think of it often, you might recall it from time to time. Like I've definitely had those encounters at work where I'll have met somebody briefly and will have been able to do something that for them was so transformative that it does stick with you in a really, really nice way to be able to think, like I wonder how that person's doing, even though they might have forgotten all about you or maybe not. But yeah, I think that's probably the best reason that there is for any of us to be in piercing. I mean, aside from stealing toilet paper, obviously.
That's a big bonus though.
Yeah. I mean, just to clarify, I'm still buying the toilet
I
paper.
am also still buying it. Yeah. But still, it doesn't count mentally in your mind.
It doesn't. It doesn't count. So let me just recap what our 10 things we love about body piercing are.
Did you take notes during the whole thing, you nerd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
I had
hit me with
my
it.
ones and then I added in your ones so
All
that
right.
I didn't count.
Hit me with it.
So travel, the smell of medical supplies, the elderly, threading something on the first time, threading something off the first time, the smile when clients look at themselves in the mirror, not getting out of bed early in the morning, body piercers, business cards, and business card accessories. stealing studio supplies and forging core memories with clients when they're pierced at potentially pivotal life moments. Those are our top 10. What
10
do
things we like about body piercing.
you So I know that we each kind of had a little bonus in case that there was any overlap. I don't think we had any overlap though.
I mean, the screwing stuff on and off was a gentle overlap.
Yeah. Um, I have one bonus one.
Okay,
Uh,
well, I did the last question, so let me throw out my bonus thing, and then you can end with your bonus thing.
okay.
Okay. Uh, I love all the weirdly hyper-specific things that I know about human anatomy, and I'm not talking about things from a class or a diagram. I mean, like I could line up 100 ball sacks and I could tell you, I could grade them. I could put them into categories. I could all kinds of hyper specific things. And it's weird as a body piercer. Like most people don't even know what the different parts in the ear are called or that they are even called different things. It's just the ear. But like you can sit on a bus and you can look over at a stranger and stare at their ear and be like, these piercings would be perfect for you. Or you can look at some other sort of like anatomical feature and you can completely visualize it internally and externally and maybe even imagine the tissue manipulation of it or whatever. So that has always been like a neat little thing for me. And it's very specific and very weird, but we know a lot of things like foreskin and all that's it's just weird. Bodies are weird, and I enjoy the knowledge I have gained about the weirdness.
So that was originally one of mine that I decided not to go with because I wasn't really sure how to articulate it. But I think that I even wrote really weird specific things about the body. Knowing really
Yeah.
weird specific things about the body is what I wrote. And I don't
Yeah.
know why, but I was also thinking about ball bags.
Hmm.
Like, I don't
I
know
mean, how
why.
could you not?
I think it's because they are weird. Like they are weird little things,
Yeah.
little weird wrinkly things that just kind of they're just hanging there. So
Yep.
like but it's not just that. It's all different parts of the body where you can look at someone and it's not just a theoretical, this is the size they need, this is what would look good. You know how, like, what it would feel like to puncture that person in that place. Like, you
Hmm.
have that locked away in your brain.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's also things like, again, not to just make it about dicks because they're inherently kind of funny, but like when you're doing a piercing at the head of the penis and you have to think, what is this going to look like when it's in different states? And the
Hmm.
same with nipple piercings as well. You have to think like, what do I think it's going to look like, when it's hot, when it's cold, like you don't always have that
Yeah.
variation in temperature.
Theoretical boners.
You just get a sense for like how the anatomy moves and changes just based on the aggregate of all of the information that you've taken in. And you have those moments where you're just like, yeah, it's really weird that I know that, but I do know. Like it's
Yeah.
weird to know. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that's really cool that like it's not weird, but it's weird that it's not weird. If that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So, are you going to hit me with your bonus?
So my bonus isn't as fun because it doesn't really involve ball bags.
Ooh.
But I love that a big part of our jobs involves shopping for jewelry. Like
Yeah. That is
we
nice.
we buy all of the jewelry for our businesses, or like if you're in a bigger shop that has someone who's in charge of buying in stock, it would be that person. But like you literally get to just sit and look at pages and pages of super fun interesting, innovative, wacky designs and think like, what do I want to work with? Like there's part of it that's like what will sell, what will clients want, but then you also get to have those moments where you're like, we all have things in our studio that we've decided to take a shot on where we're like, no, I think I want to give this a try. Where it's like you pick out designs and styles and get to introduce them to your client base and get really excited when you're talking about them. And like, I really like that there's that element where you just get to like shop for stuff. Like even if it's ultimately not for you, it's still really fun getting to put displays together and jewelry lines together. It doesn't all come together by magic. Like a lot of thought goes into it when you're planning on what you're going to be selling for a quarter or a season or whatever it is. And I think that that's super fun. Like, who doesn't love just shopping for sparkly things all day?
Yeah, it is a pretty good part of the job. Shout out to Kiwi for those Pokemon ends. Those were super cool to get.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that's a really solid list. I think that we should wrap it up here before we can accidentally spiral into negativity, as we are wont to do.
That's a terrible thing to say. Now I'm in a bad mood.
Well, thanks for listening to the Piercing Wizard podcast. If you're interested in any of my content, I have a new video all about conch piercings available at patreon.com/RyanPBA. Anything you want to plug or talk about for the near future?
No, you just made me panic and think, is there something that I'm supposed to have done I haven't done?
Everything is cool. Everything is fine.
You know what I will plug? It's not so much as a plug, but I officially want to welcome Kat, my new body piercer, who's going to be starting with me next month. Um,
Is it Swanton or can I actually call her Swanton?
So I have never addressed her by her full Christian name because I've never had a reason to do that. I just call so I don't know if she pronounces it Swanton or Swanton. I would imagine that it's Swanton because why would somebody call themselves Swanton? I don't know.
I'm gonna call her Cat Swanton Bomb.
Okay, you do that. So Kat's going to be starting with us next month. She's guested with us a bunch of times, fits in great. Customers really get on with her and so do we. So we're very excited to bring her up to Glasgow. So that's a super exciting thing that's happening in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, that's cool. The forest grows. All right. Well, thanks for listening to another episode, and we'll be back with more at some point.
Bye.
For more information about the show, visit piercingwizardpodcast.com or like Piercing Wizard Podcast on Facebook. For more info about your host, visit precisionbodyarts.com or search Ryan PBA on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr. If you enjoy the show, you can subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcast, and Google Play. Music by Benny B. Blanco. Show copyright 2017, Precision Body Arts LLC, all rights reserved.